Well, hello and welcome to the Car Care Not channel live stream. How you guys doing today? Everybody's enjoying their Saturday. I am enjoying my Saturday. We actually just came back. We went to an event with the family. I just want to make sure, since we've been having for the last couple live streams issues with the sound, I want to make sure somebody in the chat, if you don't mind, uh, can you hear me well? Is everything good? Mrs. Car Care Not is a little busy to check it for me. So I'll make sure that you guys can hear me well. Sound is good. All righty, let's get started then. Are you guys ready? So Core 996 2016 Forerunner inside rear window defroster doesn't work. Would it be a fuse? Could it be something in the back access panel area that could have been disconnected accidentally? It's possible. So there is one wire that goes directly to the glass. If there's been any kind of work there, maybe the glass was replaced, that would be something I would look at. Fuse, not likely, because this is kind of fused with other stuff. But I would check first that, and then you want you want to ohm the glass itself to see if you have an issue with it. So Hermes Mercury drive lapses, 2020 Tacoma and Forerunner. Owner's manual say power steering fluid is ATF, Dextron 2 or 3. Is that true that I just add Toyota WS fluid, or can I use M-Soil multi-vehicle power steering fluid? On this case, I would use multi-purpose power steering fluid because, yes, you can use ATF, but I like using power steering fluid for the additives that it have. I don't know why Toyota does this. They love to do this because when you look at the fluid, the original of the car, it does not smell like Dextron 2 or 3. It smells like power steering fluid. So there's a difference there. I know it's just a smell, but it's actually an additive package that gives that smell. So just use power steering fluid. Amsoil is fine. Others are also fine. So more, my 2012 Toyota Corolla rattles when starting it cold. Do you know what can I do to fix the problem? Unfortunately, in this case, you need VVTi gears, specifically the intake. If you want to do both, that's up to you. But I do have a video coming up. I'm planning to film it. I haven't filmed it yet. I actually had a job that we did at the dealership. I did cams and VVTi gears and the whole 9 yard. So I got these parts. The customer didn't want them back, so I saved them so we can do a video with them. I'll explain to you how the thing works and why do they rattle. We'll take one apart. I'm trying to film this in the next few weeks so we can get it out. But the issue is the gear itself. You're going to want to replace it, and you should have no issues after that. For a Star, is there any UV protectant you would recommend to protect a 20-year-old Toyota Clear Coat from Arizona sun? Ceramic coating works really good for um, like UV protection and even other kind of protection as well. Works really well. So Scott Halps, I actually read your entire question while I was waiting for the live stream to come to 7 o'clock. So it's a very long question, folks. I'm not going to take a lot of time to read it, but I will speak to Scott directly. Scott, it looks like you have a electrical problem. So the problem that Scott is having some electrical gremlins with his 2006 Tundra. Every time you turn on the lights, the cruise control light starts flashing, and the VSC and all kinds of gremlins. The first thing I would do, Scott, is check for rodent damage, check for wiring issues. Has there been any major work to this car? Grounds is a big one. It's going to be hard for me to diagnose it in this format because this is going to be an in-person diagnosis. It could be even an ABS actuator that is causing an issue. So this is going to need a little bit of involvement, but I want you to first scan. And every time you have your car is running fine, and all of a sudden you have all these gremlins where random electrical stuff happened. The first question you need to ask yourself is, was there any recent work to this car? Oh, wait a second, we just replaced the transmission. Well, go check in that area. Do you have a loose ground? Do you have a wire that is pinched? Do you have something? If you just did a timing belt, check if you did something there. If you've just done a bunch of service, you did spark plugs, fluids, this and that. Check the area where there was work, because that's the first thing. Because Toyotas are not really known for random electrical gremlins. They do happen, but they're very rare unless there's some kind of modification. Do you have aftermarket alarm? Do you have an aftermarket? This is the first steps you want to take when you have random electrical gremlins always. So Jamie Livingston, looking at a 2014 RX 350 that had a timing cover reseal, 50,000 miles, now at 65,000 miles. Had climate control, refresh, and fuel service at the same time all at a Lexus dealership 2 years ago. Any concerns? It is not a concern. It would be more of a concern if it's leaking at the moment than it's been fixed. Usually, when these things are fixed, that are done well, you shouldn't have an issue. And I'd rather have it being fixed. Just make sure it's, everything is, nothing is leaking on the car and everything works, and you should have no issues. So, Maxim, I have a Toyota Camry 2012, 80,000 miles. I am planning to do the first ever transmission fluid change. Do you recommend to flush or just drain and fill? Drain and fill at this stage because it's a little later in the miles. Just a drain and fill, safer, and everything is great. All right, let's see where we were at here. So, Azad, does the 2016 Lexus IS200T have grease fittings? I assume you're meaning. If yes, where are they located and how many? These typically do not have them. The only ones that have them would be your trucks, GX, LX on the Lexus side or the Toyota side. The earlier Tacomas, the Tundras, and the Forerunners, these are the ones that are going to have grease fittings. Some of them, not all of them. I'm drawing a blank here, but I'm trying to remember if it was the Tacoma or the Tundra that dropped them on the newest generation, not the 2022 Tundra, but the 2021, and below that generation. They did drop the grease fittings. I know Forerunners still have them. We get a lot of these, and they still have them, but either Tacoma or Tundra dropped it. So, another question from Core 996, 2016 Forerunner. As of recently, it seems like when you're started up, the exhaust smells like it's running a bit richer than it used to be in the past 41,000 miles. It's really hard to assert because cars will run a little bit rich when they're cold and the catalytic converter is not warmed up and it's not doing its thing yet. But if you don't have a check engine light, if you have a scan tool, look at the fuel trim, see what they're doing when the car is warmed up, because that's usually what translates to when it's cold. But nothing right off the bat. I mean, they're going to run a little rich if you're, especially if you're running it in a garage or something, you're going to smell it more. So James Abbott, looking at a 2012 Avalon, top 3 things to check before buying. Front timing cover, although they're not as common on these. Definitely head gasket. If this is a rusty car, you might have a corroded head gasket. This is something, not as common, but these are the big ticket items on these. Otherwise, power steering leaks. Rack loves to leak on these, and the return line, the lines that go from the power steering reservoir and they kind of run down, go to the front of the car. That was notorious. Not really big items here, but these are things. Otherwise, service history and the standard, pre-purchase inspection, but nothing specific other than this stuff. Let's see here. So Alexander Ross, 2017 RAV4 hybrid. What is the max towing capacity? Any upgrades to increase the max towing? I would have to look this up. I don't memorize the towing capacities, but any upgrades to increase? No. That is something you do not want to update or kind of modify hybrids. This is how hybrids get destroyed. Do not modify hybrids for more towing. And if somebody says that, you're welcome to do that, but this is how your reliability kind of goes out the window, so be careful with that. Greg Ball, I mistakenly added about 5 ounces of red coolant to my 2021 Land Cruiser. Do I have a problem? Are red cap and pink cap coolants compatible? They are not compatible, but about 5 ounces. Did you add it to the reservoir or to the radiator? That's the question here. Now, I will say this. When you add a small amount, that's a very small amount of red coolant to a pink coolant car, it's a much lesser issue than if you add pink coolant to a red coolant car. Pink coolant's a little bit more aggressive. That's a lot of people say a lot of things about it, but red coolant is a little bit more aggressive. So all the seals in the car are going to be designed for it. But when you put pink coolant in a red coolant car that's not designed for it, that's when disasters start. To play it safe, and since this is a 2021 Land Cruiser, and since coolant is not exactly expensive, nor is it difficult to replace on this car, I would just replace it. Be on the safe side. It's not worth the. Is it? Are we going to have problems or not? Just replace it. If you just put the coolant in the expansion tank, then just take the expansion tank, dump it out, put new coolant in. You're good. You don't have to do the whole thing. But if you added it to the radiator, yes, I would play it on the safe side. It's not worth it. This is too precious of a car, of a truck to kind of hope for the best. No, just train. It's not worth it. Ryan Z, I got a warranty claim approved on rust being caused by the Forerunner trim on the rear hatch. Have you seen this issue? Is there anything to do to prevent it? So, if we are talking about the back door of the Forerunner, like the door all the way in the back. I would have to see it, but two cases I have seen, and this actually applies to all Toyotas, not just the Forerunner. So sometimes that back trim that says Forerunner on it, it actually has studs that go through the body. And if when these were installed, there's like tiny scratches that are put on the edge, this actually would cause rust to start. They usually have a rubber seal around them, but if you have a lot of salt and heavy use, it's gonna start to corrode. It's just gonna leave a line of rust that is going to leak down, and it's actually not showing you the rust because it's hidden behind the panel. That is one case, but the more common case that we're seeing here is the license plate bolts. Again, same thing. Toyota stopped doing this in some models, but the Forerunner is so ancient it didn't get that. You have basically a nut that is welded to the back of a hole. You're gonna put your screw and you're gonna strip that paint off of it, and now it's just gonna rust. Every single time, every single car, there's not really much you can do about it other than kind of putting some kind of paint over the bolt threads. Not paint, maybe some kind of sealer, maybe engine sealer, RTV. Just put a little bit and close it so it wouldn't allow water intrusion there. That's the only thing you can do. In the newer cars, we're moving away from that, thankfully. But in the ancient Forerunner, that is not the case. As long as they approve the claim, you should be good. Vic Eskov, I'm disappointed with the quality of my 2021 Corolla. With less than 12,000 kilometers, I have to change the wheel bearing. This should be covered under warranty. And was there accidents? Did you hit a bump? Did you? This is where you want to ask yourself these questions. It could be just a failure, but if it is just a failure, not caused by anything, then this could be something with manufacturing. That's why cars have warranties. Get it replaced, but there is actually no history of wheel bearings failing just very early on these. Just so you know, there is one or two here and there, but it's not common at all. So Nick, can you recommend a tool to reset my TPMS with wheel changes? I can't find a good one. So, what was it called? Carista, but you want to make sure go to their website, Carista, just write Carista scan tool on Google and go to their website, make sure that they're compatible with your car. This is probably the cheapest route. They do have a monthly subscription. That's when we did the tool review. I told them that's not a good idea, but it's their company to do whatever they want. But that is a cheaper tool. You can make a subscription for a month, pay the $7 or $8. I hope they didn't raise it. I haven't checked that. But do that, change your wheels, and then cancel the subscription. And then when it comes back time to change it again, just pay $8. It's still cheaper. And the tool's like 20, $30. It's nothing expensive. But just make sure that they do allow like that capability is available for your model before you buy it. So let's see where we are at. So JK1982, I've got a 2008 RX 400h with a bad ABS actuator. I reset the brake lights and have been using only regenerative braking to stop. My stopping ability has been getting worse. Advice. Well, if this car is in good shape, it doesn't have a lot of miles and a lot of other issues, replace it. Now, if you want to go on the cheaper side, You can go with a used one, but just know that you would want to buy a used one with some kind of warranty, 90-day warranty, and have it installed immediately, just in case. Because sometimes you replace a bad part with something used, the used part could have the same problem. That's the only problem. So you want some kind of warranty to make sure that we're not going to have another bad part go out and now you continue on with this. That's just the only thing I would advise. Candace 2021 RAV4 hybrid had new problem in Canada. How to prevent corrosion on the high voltage wire harnessing that connects to the MGR. The fix still exposes the cables. Folks, I will hold comments on that because there's actually a fix coming in the radar, and this has been talked about a lot. I don't like to tell you, yes, there's a common problem, but there's no fix for it yet. That really doesn't add any value to you, just probably makes people more upset. But this is one of those situations. Same thing with the Tundra turbochargers. Again, things happen. This is a new car. Every new car could have problems, and that they will take care of it eventually. When is that going to happen? I hope sooner than later, but nobody's perfect. Things happen. But this one I will update you on because a lot of people have been asking me about this one. I have only seen one case. It's the kind of case that always makes me wonder, like, you've been making hybrids for a very long time, you've never had this issue, now you do. It's like you should be very easy to figure out what you guys did wrong this time. But again, it's still in the works, and when I have more concrete information that actually have passed a little bit of a test of time, I will let you know. John, why does Europe and Japan have all the small hatchback hybrids and the US doesn't? Historically, and this is not official stuff, this is my opinion. Historically, the US have not been exactly friendly with hatchbacks, small hatchbacks. And that's potentially changing now with rising gas prices and everything. But in the US, driving a very, very small hatchback that typically works great in Europe and Japan on a highway with semis around you. I mean, my US folks, and even Canada, is the same thing. You know that feeling when you drive a very, very small, lightweight car on the highway and all the semis are flying past you. It's a scary feeling. That feeling doesn't exist as much in Europe because most of your commute, yes, you have highways, big semis too, but most of the commutes are not really like that. In the US, majority of commutes are like that. Probably the same thing in Australia. Haven't been, but that's my imagination. Again, it's a big continent with a lot of road. But that's starting to change because the decision to bring the Corolla GR instead of the Yaris GR was actually driven by that. The Yaris is just too small. Great car, yes, but it's just too small for the US. So we they brought the Corolla. Corolla is successful here, so it made sense. Ryan Z, when should I replace the Forerunner transmission fluid, drain and fill or flush, and where are all the grease fittings on the Forerunner? So on your Forerunner, replace the transmission fluid. Drain and fill is fine. If you want to do a flush, make sure you follow it by a fluid level check every 60,000 miles or 6 years, whichever comes first. Use original fluid, ATFWS, and the grease fittings are going to be on every U joint. So I'm trying to remember. There's two, potentially four in the back. This is the kind of stuff I just do without really paying attention to how many of them are there. Just do them all. There's going to be one at every U joint. That's find the U joints. You're going to find your fitting. They're very easy to get to. The front one is a little, especially the back one, a little tighter, but they're not hard to do DIY. I don't think you even have to lift the truck to do that, honestly. So, Jenny T, what are your thoughts on the BZ4X? Is it worth buying the 2022 or should we wait for the second generation? I would wait a little bit on this one because this is not only a new model, it's a new joint venture and it's a new, completely different car. So I would, if you don't mind potentially having few little issues that you need to take it back, cover a new warranty and all that, then sure, go for it if you want to just have the electric car already. But if you have the luxury of waiting, I would wait at least 6 months. Let them work out the little hiccups at the first production run and then buy it, and then it'll be fine. I actually I am contemplating, do I let the inner 9-year-old rule, or do I let the a little bit more on the wiser side rule? That's I'm fighting this because gas prices are going up. I have more cars than drivers in my home, so I'm actually trying to get rid of some of the cars because I just don't like paying insurance for cars I don't drive. And I feel like I want to adventure with electric cars just to see how they are. I have an opinion of them. I don't own one though. I think that opinion will be a lot more enforced with actual data from ownership. Um, I feel like I want to buy BZ4X, and I wouldn't mind buying one of the very first ones because, again, I can fix them. It's not an issue. But I'm also the 9-year-old in me wants to buy a Corolla GR. Now, the Corolla GR, it's not going to be a car I'm going to be driving all the time. So it's just going to, kind of a museum piece thing type deal. We'll put it in the garage with a cover. But yeah, I'm going back and forth. I like the BZ4X. I just wish it had a different name that I can remember easier, but we'll see. It's coming up. No technical information yet, zero on it. So when we start seeing something concrete, I'll make a video about it. So Felipe, looking to buy an older Avalon 0304, but can only find 0608. I hear these models are pretty spotty. What's your opinion on third gen Avalons? So the third generation Avalon, they're okay, but you need to be aware that these had significant problems at 2005 and some 2006. Mainly have to do with the engine. This was the first year for the 2GR. Again, 2GR right now is the kind of the hallmark of reliability, but that was the first year. And if you catch yourself a 2005 Avalon made in 2004 or early 2005, you could have potentially catastrophically faulty VVTi gears. They had a problem with them. They changed the design sometime around the end of 2006 and actually changed it again by 2008. If you want to play it safe with Avalons, either go 2003, 2004. If you're buying a used today, 2003, 2004, this is a bulletproof car as long as it doesn't have rust or it, excuse me, sorry about that. As long as it doesn't have rust or it's been neglected. Just that's otherwise 2008 things got better, but when they really got better is 2010 when they did the mid-year refresh. If you want to play it safe, these are the 2 years. Otherwise, you really want to do a good due diligence on your pre-purchase inspection. Oil leaks, head gasket stuff, rattle and cold start. These are big stuff with these. You really do not want to buy one that the next day you started it rattles, so that would be really bad. So most of them got fixed though. So looking at the service history, if it has a full one, you might actually see it that at 20,000 miles the things start rattling and they replaced everything and now you're good. So SM, best oil filter. Should you prime filters? Folks, best oil filter, in my opinion, and everybody will have an opinion. My opinion comes from real world. The Toyota oil filter. If you're talking about Toyota or Lexus, buy the OEM one because there is some of these companies. Okay, brand coming up, be ready. Some of these guys that love to dedicate their lives to oil and filtration and all that stuff. My head goes out to them because that's a very difficult subject to talk about. But are there filters that are better than the Toyota OEM filter with the filtration capabilities and all that fancy scientific stuff? Yes. But do you need them is the question. Because again, we go back to this is the required filtration for this engine. If you go higher, that doesn't mean your engine will run longer. It just means you're going to filter more, but the engine doesn't really need it. So that's again that conversation. The OEM filters on Toyotas are really good. They're very high quality. I wouldn't recommend anything more than them. And should you prime filters? Really, no. That's newsflash. If it makes the car care nut in you feel better if you prime them, sure. Some of them you can't if they go on the side, but don't stress over it. It's not really something that really causes a big issue as some make it out to be. Especially now, it would be an issue, and you do want to prime your filter in that case if you drain the oil. And this is a weird situation, but you drain the oil, drain the filter, then leave the car overnight. then it could be an issue. But if you just drove the car in, you did an oil change, and you started, drove it out, don't worry about priming it. Because, by the way, this is something that's gonna, when engines are built, they're not primed. And when some people say they are, they crank them, but you're still kind of spinning the engine with no oil. So things happen. Don't worry about priming the filter. It's not as big of a deal as some make it to be. Loco per Toyota, is the manual lever operated transfer case better and more reliable than the knob twisted one on these Forerunners? So, yes and no. Sorry, I had it. It's been a while. I haven't said an answer like that. Yes, because you have one less actuator for the transfer case, because now you're manually activating, but you still have the ADD in the front. ADD is automatic disconnecting differential. That's what connects the front drive shafts or disconnects them. But they've come a long way lately. I mean, if you activate the electronic one, the button ones, every month or two, just kind of move them back and forth, they are actually very reliable. Yes, you'll have a slight advantage with the lever, but you don't want to, just because of that, go to a higher trim and pay a lot more money for the truck. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. If you're happy with an SR5 Forerunner that comes with a rotary thing, but you're worried about that, and you're going to spend five, six, $7,000 more to get the higher trim that has the like TRD premium, TRD off-road premium, just to get that, it's not worth it. But if you're into off-roading, you're going to really off-road with this truck, and this is why you're buying it, then perhaps that's a good option, because they are more, you know it is just a characteristic of the off-road trucks to have a manual, and it's a kind of a bragging thing a little bit, because honestly, in the end, they both work exactly the same and do the same function. But just for reliability's sake, they're very close, with the manual one having a slight advantage. Ryan Z, thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate your generosity, and any tip to find a passionate Toyota mechanic like you? Honestly, just get to know them. Now, when I started my channel, and I'll say this, um, I used to regularly attend forums just to see. There's a capability in YouTube to kind of see where the traffic to your videos is coming from, and I was very curious. I had a very small following, and I wanted to kind of understand where my viewers are, what they wanted, what they heard. They were not commenting a lot, so I would chase after the forums to see who's watching my videos, and some of them said, I think I had 200 subscribers, and they're like, well, this guy only has 200 subscribers. What does he know? How do we know what he's talking about? That is not a good measure. You need to get to know me. And I hope in the past 2 years, you guys have gotten to know me a little bit. Get to know your mechanic. Don't deal with an advisor only. Yes, if you're going to a dealership, for example, you're going to have to deal with the advisor, because that's the way. But get to know your mechanic personally. As a person, you're going to be able to tell, are they caring, or just like, yeah, yeah, whatever, yeah, get out of here, see ya? Then they're not a caring person. If they care about you, they're gonna try your best. You can't really know what kind of work they're doing exactly, but you can at least see if they are caring. They care about you. If they care about you, they're gonna care about a car. If they don't care about anything, and they're just miserable and negative, they're not gonna care about anything, and that's not the mechanic you want working on your car. So Eric Kelenak, if you own a PHEV Prime or Prius, should you do oil changes on the mileage schedule or a time schedule? I think time schedule, because that oil is just going to sit there, but you do want to really be on top of this, because some people do it either way. They either overdo it or underdo it, and that's not a good thing. Davy Condol, what do you recommend Toyota Corolla Cross LE all-wheel drive versus Subaru Crosstrek? We always have Toyotas or Hondas in our household. This will be a first Subaru. So Subarus are good, but when you compare them reliability to Toyota, Toyota will have a slight advantage. Subaru will have a very, very good all-wheel drive system that will make the Toyota one feel like a toy all-wheel drive system. But again, priorities. Do you want that very sophisticated all-wheel drive system with a slight sacrifice in reliability overall? Then go with the Subaru. But if your primary focus is reliability, you need an all-wheel drive. You don't need a very sophisticated one. The basic one that works for a Toyota is good. Then go with that. Okay, 2008 Lexus RX 350, 126,000 miles, side rack, boot, destroyed, no active leaks, no noises, no steering difficulties. Have been driving this way, 15,000 dealers. Tech suggested replacing the rack. Well, something caused that boot to explode, and you're going to want to find out what. Usually it's a leak. Sometimes it's hard to see it, but at least for now, until you figure that out, put a boot on it to make sure we're not going to damage the seal now that it's exposed, and then see. Keep an eye on your fluid, keep an eye on that. If there's nothing that happened, then life is good, but at least you protected with a new boot. MDEJ87, have you heard the rear differential howl in third generation Tacoma? Yes, that is actually something very common on these, and just don't rush to replace them. If it's the howl that's gradually increasing, keep an eye on it, but keep an ear on it, and see if it all of a sudden gets very loud. But usually I wouldn't worry about it too much and wouldn't rush to really get get it replaced or fixed. So Ether Drive, I broke the clock spring when trying to replace my steering wheel on my Lexus IS250 2010. Is this an easy DIY replacement? Well, if you had the steering wheel off, you can replace it. That's really the hardest part about it for DIY, at least. You just take the covers, the top and bottom around the steering column, and it's very simple to replace it. Just they will come locked. You want to make sure the steering wheel is straight ahead. Put them on, remove the lock, don't let it spin, and then put the steering wheel, and that's that. Raphael M, what do you think about a used 2017 Lexus ES300h with 97,000 miles for 24K? Do you think it's worth it? As far as prices, it is really hard for me to tell you from prices, but as far as the car itself, that is a very good car. That miles is not extreme, but do your due diligence on the inspection and everything, because that's something you do not want to just jump in a hybrid without a pre-purchase inspection. Look at the service history. Has this car been taken care of? Oil changes done every 5,000 miles, hopefully. Somebody was listening to me at least. I hope so. Okay. Butterflip Flip.com 2004 Highlander, former owner, removed vacuum lines on the airbox leading to the vacuum switching valve. Any idea why someone might do this? Seems to run fine, no lights or codes. So this is for the if this is for the active mount in the front, it's not a big issue. It's gonna have a little bit more vibration that most people don't really notice. Um, some people just they see this stuff and they did a DIY job. They don't know what this is. They removed it, the car ran fine. I'm like, nah, let's just leave it as it is. But you know what? I would look into restoring it because it does make a small difference. That active mount in the front, especially under higher acceleration, it does smooth things out a little bit better. If you paid money to buy this car with a feature, you'd want that feature to still be there. That's the way I see it. Otherwise, it kind of becomes interesting. So try to if they're just vacuum lines, try to route them back and get some generic. You don't go buy the OEM one; it's expensive. It's just a vacuum line, but uh, do consider getting a vacuum line for it and just run it. Softball by Fat. Thank you so much, sir, for your generosity. I really appreciate it. So Corolla's B, Lexus IS250. Is the K&N air filter worth it? Absolutely not worth it. Folks, I am not friendly with K&N filters, the ones with the oil. Mhm. As far as more power, yeah, you'll get half a horsepower more until it clogs, then you lose two. There's not a magic cheap solution to get more power out of cars. You could potentially get better response, but it's not exactly more power. But at the cost of the maintenance that is a pain for that filter, if you want to do it right. If you don't want to do it right, then you're going to have a clogged filter all the time. It kind of becomes counterproductive. Don't really like the K&N filters. Just get the original filter. And as far as getting more power, I'm not the person to ask for that. But yeah, Kevin Paul, my car is 5 years old and I just got it in June. It's a 2018 Camry LE. My miles right now is 59,400. Is it time to change transmission oil? Yes, sir. This would be the time to change it. Um, you're right at 60,000 miles. You can do either a flush or a drain and fill. If you do a flush, make sure they follow it with, or you follow it with a fluid level check. Chloe's mom, Best brand of oil for 2011 Highlander. The oil conversation is long and hard. However, I'll tell you what I would do in my what I do in my personal car. It's up to you how you go with it. I use Toyota oil because a it's designed for these cars. B, I work at a dealership and that's the easiest place to buy oil from. Sorry, that's just the truth. But they're actually lately they've been not only there is it good oil. I've used it on all my cars and it's beautiful. I actually have never had issues with it. Not only that, but lately it's actually cheaper than Mobile One. And it kind of does usually doesn't make sense, but make sure you shop around for that because this is the best oil for Toyotas. Don't use it in other cars. But and if when it's cheaper than your Mobile One, your standard oil that you buy, it's like this is like it becomes a kind of a no-brainer. But that's what I use in my personal car. The oil conversation will go on and on and on. There's a lot of good oil out there, but that's what I use in my cars. Vic Escov, hello from Mexico. Hello, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining the live stream, sir. So, Chris Nas, I added LED blinker lights. Now my blind spot system doesn't work. So, I would need to know a lot more information on this. Did you add them on the mirrors? Did you just change the bulbs? Because the blind spot monitor has two sensors in the back and they have the lights in the mirrors. So if something happened to the mirrors or the circuit going to the mirror, that could be your issue. And it's really going to be in person diagnosis, really hard to do this in this format. So Tom Merson, I have a new Lexus. It has 2,500 miles. Should I change the oil now or at 5,000 miles? You could change it now, or you can wait till the 5,000. I personally recommend you change it at a break-in oil change at 1,000 miles. At 2,500, you can still change it again at five, and then every five after that. Janice Williams, any idea what could be loose and rubbing underneath my 2022 Sienna when I go slower speeds? I had gotten stuck on some rocks. Well, this is going to be, some of the covers underneath it, one of the heat shields or something underneath it. If you know that you got stuck on a rock, likely that's what it is, but I would get it checked sooner than later. You don't want some of these covers sometimes when they rip out and they're stuck on the drive shaft, for example, or an axle, they could get ripped out. So kind of get it. I would get it checked as soon as possible to prevent any further issues from happening. MDEJ87, what is causing the howl on the rear differential Tacomas? Do you think there will be a recall? Likely not a recall. This is something that I'm trying to remember the exact word. So the depth of the pinion, I think it's called, the pinion gear and the ring gear, they have to make a perfect contact. If they're out of contact, they're going to start howling. That's just something with differentials. And for some reason, we've had Tacoma's owners that complain. And this was actually an older Forerunner thing too. You get the differential. The differential in Toyota is just the whole gut of the differential. The carrier comes out. So we get a new one. Check the contact patch. It's no good. Get the next one. It's barely good. It does happen. They've had an issue with this for some reason, but it is that's why I tell you it's not a failure. It is just the context patch is not right. And actually, if you have the patience, the skills, and the facility and the tools, you can actually set it. And that's the cool part. Unless there's tooth damage, then that's done. Depends on where it's at. As far as recall, I don't think so. This is not really something as a safety concern, but that is up to Toyota. You never know with Toyota. Enough people complain about things, they listen, and sometimes they do. So, Tracy, what are your thoughts about having a Prius motor steam clean versus detailing cleaning it yourself? Watching Chris Fix channel and want what's best for the car care. So, typically, um, steam is better because you're not introducing as much water dumping on the engine, but if you want to clean the engine, clean it once. Look, I'm going to make a video on this on spring, but here's a lot of people are asking about this. So let's just give you a little bit of an idea. The idea with engine cleaning is prevention, not regular washing. If you wash your engine once, and then touch it up. Keep it clean. Wipe it every once in a while. And there's a few methods that I'm going to share in that video. But the basic thing is you do not want high pressure water. You do not want direct water with high pressure, especially at connectors that are facing you. So you don't want, you see the wires going into a connector. Yes, they're weather sealed, but they're not waterproof under pressure. They're not. So that's what you want to avoid. Avoid direct water pressure at wires going into a connector. That's the only thing you want to avoid. And the ignition coil. So that's another one you want to avoid direct pressure. Tony C, 2021 Sienna rear brakes can't remove caliper blocked by e-brake motor against the upper slide pin on the bracket. Special way to do it: use a wrench. That's usually what we've been doing. Um, yeah, some of these are interesting the way they're designing it. You do want to remove the use a wrench. This is an open end wrench or a box wrench or something of that nature. Alex Gutierrez, how much would you pay for a 2017 Camry SE with 58,000 miles? Should I buy it? Is it the one of the best Camrys? It is, but don't overpay for it. There is no car that is worth overpaying for. I don't care how good it is. I can't really help with pricing of things because, in my book, that is most $12,000 car. That's just in my book. That's how much it should be worth. Um, Today, though, things are all over the place. Probably a 20,000 plus $1,000 car because they're not available, and everybody's asking an arm and a leg for cars. But I'll say this: you have no choice right now but to overpay for cars. There is no other choice. But at least make you're buying a good car. Make sure it is a very good car, not a car that you're going to overpay for and then it has issues because it was neglected in the past. That's if you have no choice but to buy a car, that's what I would do. So let's see. Larry Page, three questions. One, with supply side issues, are technicians losing income? How has warranty pay impacted you? There was a use of word was in your YA interview comment. Yes. Larry Page, with supply side issues, our technician losing income. So, yes, it has been really bad lately, honestly. I will say this because you get a car, you're trying to finish the job, we don't get paid until the job is finished, and there's no parts. So basically, I start the day, do diagnosis on warranty. Oh, we order the part, it'll be in 3 weeks. Okay, I got nothing. Fine. Let's get the next car. Well, this car needs this, this, this. Okay, we gotta wait for field rep or something. Okay, park it outside. And then the next one, the next one. The next thing you know, half the day passes and you basically made nothing. It does get old a little bit after a while. So that's interesting. The HB3940. I am not sure if this is what we are talking. We will talk about the same thing, but Illinois recently joined a bunch of states that requires the manufacturer to pay the same as customers. If you're not aware of this, warranty times are less than what customers pay. So usually the customer pay time is time and a half of the warranty. That's how this has worked. And basically, you could be doing a job for less pay just because it's under warranty. Well, Illinois joined multiple states that prohibits the manufacturer from doing that. So now the manufacturer pays. So basically, warranty pay went up for technicians. It's nice, and I think it's fair. Toyota might not like it, but that's their problem. I think it's fair, and I wish all technicians would be treated this fairly because you're basically doing a job for less, a job that should be the same. You're doing it for less, and it just doesn't make sense. And that's how the corner cutting and all the problems start is when you underpay people for their time. A job that takes 2 hours, you're getting paid half hour to do it. That's the you're inviting problems at that point. Not all technicians will say it is what it is. We got to do right by the customer. Some will say, well, who's going to do right by me? And that's where the problems start. And a law like this will prevent that. And as far as there was a use of the word was in your YA interview, no, that is not the case. I don't know why that came out like that, but I'm still working at the dealership as of uh, day after tomorrow, first thing at 9 o'clock. I will be at the dealership. You're welcome to stop by and say hello. So blank blank, what's your rating for 2021 Toyota RAV4 and overall for build and quality of the vehicle from 1 to 10? Nothing is perfect in life. The RAV4, honestly, if we're talking about 2019, I would put it at a 6. They did have some issues with it. 2021, things got a lot better. I would probably upgrade that to an 8 or a 9. It is not a top of the line, something like a Land Cruiser build quality that gets a top 10, but it is up there. They've really improved things. All the problems that they had, almost all of them have been resolved, and that is, they took them a while because of COVID, but as of now, most of the stuff are um, resolved. Do you still work in Toyota dealership? Yes, I do. And where? Email me with the subject Chicago service request, and I will give you that information. GE, how can I get a 2009 engine? It How can I get a 2009 engine for it doesn't leak oil? This is a semi-new engine that was installed 2 years ago. I just heard about the defect with oil leaking or burning. What happens before? So if you had an engine rebuilt by the dealership, it wouldn't have an issue because they would have used the updated parts. But if this was a third party, you want to contact them. Did they use the updated parts or not? That's really the only way you're gonna know. Molly Z, we have a 14 Prius. Only portions of the rear defroster work. Is there any way I can fix this DIY? What would a dealership do? Dealership will probably just coat you a glass because they don't want to experiment. And they fix it and then it stops. Now you're back and then back and forth. Dealership will not do that. But for you, DIY. So all the defroster is basically a heater element, and you can feel it with your if you pass your fingernail over the lines, you're gonna feel that grid. It's going to take a little bit of time and research to I can explain it, but it's going to take a lot of time from everybody else. But you're basically checking continuity on each strip. Find the strip that's not working, or you're going to see which ones, because you can see them, which ones are not working. You're going to want to find where the continuity stops in that grid. Put your meter on one side, keep going until it stops. Then you have a cut. They actually sell aftermarket repair kits. You can find the cut. Usually somebody scraped it or something happened to the glass. You can just add the material. Now it's back. That's all it is. It's very simple and DIY. Time consuming and might not look the prettiest when you're done. But hey, it's going to work and beats replacing the glass, in my opinion. Especially if it's the original glass. I wouldn't replace it just because of that. So, Jim, 2019 Highlander. Since new, never had any intervention from the pre-collision system, but don't believe it's working. Had many close calls with no warnings. Very difficult to test the system because you don't want it not working and then you end up in a crash. That wouldn't be good. But a good, okay, I have to say this because you do want to test that. Here's a way to test them safely, if you would. So, you're driving on the right lane. There is like an intersection, traffic light, or something of that nature. The car in front of you is about to make a right turn, but you're coming from far away and you're coming to it. Usually, what we would do, let's be in the real world and let's not try to live by the book here. Most people will not slow down to a stop and wait for that car to turn. As that car is turning, they'll kind of swerve a little bit. That is the perfect opportunity to test the pre-collision because the pre-collision system doesn't know that this car is turning and you're going to make it. You're just making a kind of an educated calculation. Okay, this guy's going to make it. I'm just going to go and kind of come a little bit close to the lane on this side and pass. That's the time where every single time, every Toyota slams on the brakes. It's super annoying because we kind of do it without thinking. Everybody does it. If you don't do it, props to you because that's how we should all do it. But that's the way to actually test it safely in a controlled, semi-controlled environment. Just make sure there's nobody on your left. So, E-Beat fan, Corolla IM or Corolla Hatchback, which has fewer maintenance issues, and have you driven them both? I have driven them both. The Corolla IM is great, horrendous seat. I could not drive one more than a day because I have a bad back, and that seat is just not good. It is super uncomfortable, at least to me. Maybe the case might be different to you. They're both very good. The Corolla hatchback is more, it has a kind of a more modern engine. It's a little bit better built. The Corolla IM was a little bit on the cheaper side inside. Doesn't mean it's going to break down and all that. The mechanicals are the same, but it's just feeling wise. I like the Corolla IM, but between the two, I would definitely go with the Corolla hatchback. It's just nicer, better engine, a lot better technology and everything. So, some guy. I have been in the market for a first generation Tundra Sequoia 4x4. The ones in my budget are around 150 to 250,000 miles typically. What wear part should I be looking out for to avoid trouble? The number one thing you will look at, which will be an absolute deal breaker with any first generation Tundra or Sequoia, is rust. If you don't have rust, general inspection is fine, and really these are, you will easily last these into the 400,000 miles. They have the best engine, they have the best transmission, but the rust will just kill them. That they'll destroy the frame. The frame has been replaced. Everything else will start falling apart. The exhaust, the mounts, the this, the it just never ends with rust. But if you find one that's not rusty and you don't live in rusty land, these are some of the best to buy. If you don't mind how old school they are, they're obviously very old. Don't have any of the creature comforts of today. So Aryan Godfrey, any thoughts on the RAV4 high voltage cable being corroded early on in its life, mostly 3-4 years? So this is something I spoke about earlier in the live stream. When I have more information on this one, I will share it with you. But so far, they've been going back and forth on this. So I'm going to reserve comments on this until I have actual information that will be helpful, not just my opinion that gets people with this problem nowhere. So, Kathy, do I need to follow Lexus direction of 10,000 mile intervals on 2019 RX 350 with 18,000 miles? It's really your car and it's up to you. But I work on your car on the other end of the dealership, and I would never go 10,000 miles on my car. I would recommend you go 5,000. Take my advice. I hope you do, but it's up to you, really. I have reached this conclusion that it's really difficult to convince people. Some people are just, they do not want to go with the 5,000 mile recommendation. I don't care what the lab results say, because when you are at 90, 100,000 miles and your car is in my bay, your concern is your car burns oil. Where is that warranty and lab going to be? No, it's going to be me and you with a giant bill to fix your car because it's burning 3 quarts every 1,000 miles. That's why I told you to change it every 5,000. Trust me, I'm a mechanic. I make a living fixing cars. I've said this multiple times, and I'm saying it one more time. I make a living fixing cars. I don't make a living doing oil changes. I make a living fixing big stuff. So financially, to me, I make more money when you don't take care of your car and it burns oil. I make a lot less. I make nothing basically when we do an oil change every 5,000 miles. But yet I tell you to do it every 5,000 because you know what? I'd rather not make money, be broke, see people do the right thing, and then have a wonderful night's sleep where I enjoy my sleep and sleep with a good conscience than have you, oh yeah, do the 10,000 miles and you'll be fine. And then you have issues. If you keep this car 5 years, don't worry about it. If you're going to keep it longer, then do it every 5,000 miles. It's as simple as that. So, Tricky Trick. I hope I read that name right. I'm sorry. I'm interested in mods for better MPG on a 2022 Camry hybrid. Is it possible to add an air-cooled intake turbo exhaust? If not, why not? Maybe this would be a great YouTube video. Actually, you are reading my mind here. I am working on a video. I'm actually writing a few ideas that I have on a video for how to get better gas mileage out of hybrids. It's not modification. It's all in how you drive it, believe it or not. You will easily exceed the number that is rated for the car just by understanding the concept of how do you maximize it. And those that do, they consistently get more. Modifications will not help because modifications are to add more power. More power equals less gas mileage. So it's the opposite. So you want to dial things down, not really dial them up. I hope this makes sense because it's actually the opposite of what people think it is. because all the modifications you listed, cold air intake, turbo exhaust, you'll make more power, which means more air can go in, more air can go out, more fuel can go in, and more fuel can be consumed. And now that kind of negates what we're looking to do. Alrighty, folks. So we'll take a few questions. I'm going to cut this live stream a little bit short, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Let's see here. So I have a 2022 ES300h coming. Do they use third or fourth generation hybrid system? This would be fourth generation hybrid system. I'm trying to remember off the top of my mind. I think 2019 or 20 is when they shifted to fourth generation hybrid system. So, folks, we'll take one last question and something. Mrs. Karkirana just walked in.
I promised Alex Wang that you were gonna reply to his
Okay.
question.
Well, there's one more question I'm going to answer, and then we'll take Alex Way. So, John Specht has a 2021 Venza. Isn't the oil capacity 4.5 quarts? The books, folks, this is very important, and I will share this with you. It's actually a very good question, John. The book will list the oil capacity at 4.8, 4.7 in some models. This we're talking about the A25A, FKS, and FXE, even the hybrids. This is a 2.5 liter in almost every single model today. Um, you need to put 4.5, otherwise it'll be overfilled. Just thought I'd share this with you because a lot of people are being burned by this at the dealership. They follow the book. Next thing you know, customer brings a car back the next day. Hey, it's overfilled. Like especially the junior guys that are just locked on the book. It's overfilled. Yep, because you didn't put 4.5. Always put 4.5 in these. Like Camry, RAV4, Highlander hybrid, all the ones with that engine. What was the last question, Mrs. Karkirana, before we have a talk?
Send it to you.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I did not get it. Oh, here we go. All right. So the last question is from Alex Wong. Would you please let me know what do you use to extend your jack stand? I jacked my car using regular jack stands and it always damaged the frame pinch weld. So when you use jack stands, you don't want the pinch weld to sit on the side. The jack stands actually have a cutout in the middle. You want that area to be supported around the pinch weld. And this is something pretty cool about good jack stands, the ones that are designed for pinch weld. Because that's another thing. Do you know that there are two styles? There's one that holds the frame and there's one that holds the pinch weld. So you do want to get the correct style. And then I heard people using rubber or hockey pucks, but I also heard that's a bad idea. That's not exactly a good idea because unless you're using a lift, because when you put a hockey puck on top of the jack stand that is narrow, it's just not gonna be balanced. It's kind of gonna want to wobble around and fall. That's not a good idea. Just make sure you get a jack stand that's designed for pinch weld. That it'll basically be like it'll have a cutout like this, and then the jack stand will be here. So when you put your car on, it's actually not going to touch the bottom. It's going to hold it like this. I hope that makes sense. Maybe a video topic for this one, but
That's another question from him.
yes. So folks, I will just say this. This is basically the same question we actually answered, Mr. Karkirana. Uh, I will do a video in the spring, which should be in the next month or so. Although the next month or so might be interesting. Um, about washing your engine bay and some tips and tricks on what you should avoid and what you should do. Because that's something very requested. I told you guys the winter is not a good time, especially in Chicagoland, but that is something we're going to do here soon. Now, I'm going to go live on the chat and I'm going to talk to you guys because I want to tell you something. I have talked some time about there's something big and there's something um, life changing for me that is happening. And I didn't share it with you. I'm not going to share it. So hear me out though. On April 14th, so this was it, Thursday.
Thursday.
I don't know which time I'm going to post the video, but the video will come out to reveal what is going on in the background. I don't know if anybody noticed that I looked very tired, and if somebody has made a comment that I have baggy eyes, I look very tired, which I am. I work a lot, but that is the one thing that is kind of draining. And I want to ask for, even though I should tell you what it is that you're supporting me with, but I want to ask you to pray for me, wish me good vibes for April 13th, because that's going to be something that's going to determine what April 14th looks like for you guys as far as the announcement. So wish me the best. I'm really tired of this. There's a lot going on in the background, and I can't wait to share it with you guys, but I want to make sure it actually goes through. So April 13th, wish me luck, pray for me, and April 14th, you're going to know exactly what's going on. I won't hold you longer. I even told you the date. Guys, thank you so much for joining the live stream. You will know what's going on before the next live stream. We're going to talk about it more there, but it's I'll tell you, this is nothing. It's something very, very good for the channel and for me and for my family. You'll see, guys. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. I really appreciate it. I will see you on the next live stream, which is going to be next Saturday at 7 p.m. I'm going to have a vacation coming up in May. Yay! I can't wait for that. We really need it. But guys, thank you so much for joining the live stream. No baby,
No baby.
no baby. Don't give me a Mrs. Car a heart attack now. Two babies were very hard to raise. Guys, thank you so much for joining the live stream. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and we will see you April 14th. Not live, but in a video, but then live again on Saturday. Have a good weekend, guys.